Welcome everybody to another coding session. In this video, we'll be covering Pytest fixtures in depth. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so let's say I have this code. Okay, I have a class C which defines two methods f and g, and I want to test them. So I just with Pytest, I write a function called test underscore. So Pytest test have to start with test underscore f. Then I create an object of C, and then I call this method f c dot f is equal to 1, right? And then so this is function test. Uh, uh, this test for function f, and then this test does for function g. So again, I initialize a C instance, and I do c dot g assert c dot g is equal to 0, right? Now let us run this and see. So basically, I'm testing both of these method functions f and g and test underscore f and c. So all right, so let me see the pytest fixtures. Okay, so I run pytest. S flag is for printing the output, and then t1. Okay, let's run this. I have both the tests pass. Okay, so this is basic test case. Now, what are fixtures? So typically, fixtures are used for when you want to have some sort of state in your test, either database connection, or let's say a directory, something like that. Or if you want to, so fixtures are basically think of them like some functions that your test pytest automatically inserts in your code. Okay, so let's look at that now. If you see here, I'm initializing the C object twice. Okay, so let's see if we can avoid that. Rather than creating C two times, I'll put C in a fixture, right? So let's go to the second file. All right, so same thing. This is how you create a fixture. You do pytest add pytest dot. So this decorator all registers this as a fixture, and then you can use that in your function. So pytest dot fixture, and then you can call it whatever you want. And then basically, it's what I'm doing is I'm returning a C object here. Now, this when you put this function name in your test, it automatically pytest underlying does some magic, and then you get this automatically inserted, right? So in this function I do C instance because I'm returning C instance. This will already be C instance. Then I call function is equal to 1. Similarly, here in the same test, I do G is equal to 2. Right. So what is happening is the same object is being passed. Okay. By There is another important thing. Fixtures are scoped to each function, each test basically. So the scope is a function. So what you mean by that is it's not for the whole. So there are three types of scoping for a fixture. It can be within a function, which is by default, then it is session, and then it is module. So I typically use session, but yeah, so these are the three things, right? So module level fixtures, and then session, and then function. Okay, let's run this and see. So now what happens is, instead of creating C in each test, I have just created a fixture called C instance, and then I'm running it here. So let me run t dot py. Cool. Both of their test pass, right? So this is the most basic fixture. Let's see another. So I'll move on. So now in this file, I have the same code. What I'm doing is, this was our old fixture. I'm creating another fixture, right? So you can create as many fixtures, and each fixture can use another fixture, right? So that is also possible, right? So you can inherit from fixture, and you can use previous fixture, things like that. So now I'm creating another fixture called temp directory, right? So here I'm using the temp file module from Python with temp file.temp directory as temp directory. I'm yielding temp directory. Now, same thing. Let's say I want to use both these in this test, right? So I call C instance, and then both of these are my fixture temp directory, and then I'm calling asserting C instance dot f is equal to 1, and then printing the temp directory. Now, so typically this is a most of the time I use fixture like this when you want to create a state, and also you cannot do return here, right? So you're noticing there's one thing here. Since you're using a context manager, this temp directory will be available within the constant. So if you return from this, right, so this directory will get deleted, and then you will not have anything in your. So mostly be very careful. Try to use yield as much as possible, especially in places where you have context manager and things like that. Okay. And also in fixture you will see things before. So you can think of this fixture as a shut down and tear up and tear down sort of thing, right? So basically, you are creating a directory. So anything before the yield is like setting up the test, and then after yield is tearing down the test, right? So it automatic, because you have yield here. The moment it returns, it will come out of this context manager and delete the temp directory, right? So let's run this. So this is another way I'm using. In this test, I'm using both these functions. Okay. Bye. Cool. So you see, I have both the two test paths, and then we printed, created a temp directory here in a called tm. This is a temp directory, and then if you go and check there, it'll be deleted because we entered exited the test. Okay, so this is another fixture. We'll move on. Okay, so I'll go on showing you how fixtures are used. Okay, this is we had these two fixtures. This is a classical scenario wherein defining another fixture called setup and tear down. So anything before the yield will run, right, and then after the yield will also. So as soon as the yield returns, so this is like, think of it like creating a database connection and then deleting the database connection, right? So you have setup and tear down. Now this is the setup tear down function that I'm fixture that I'm using here. Even though I don't call it, but if I run this test, you'll see this fixture is being run. Okay, so let's run this test. So I have t4.py and then minus k. Cool. So you see, we have setup, right? Then in test and then tear down. So what happened here is, as soon as this started running, since there is a fixture that I'm using here, it went and printed setup, and then after the test, it print and test. Then and when the test exited, it went back and printed tear down. Okay, so that is a typical scenario. Cool. So this is what you do with fixtures. Okay, let's move on. All right. So again, what can happen is, um, this code doesn't have anything new. Okay, well, I wanted to show you something. Okay, yeah. So here, this is an important thing. You cannot, so fixtures can be used in test, but you cannot call like a fixture as a function. Okay, so they can be used as a return value, or for creating state, but you cannot call them as fixture. So if you see, you see here, I have a temp directory fixture, and within C instance I try to call this, so this should throw an error because I'm trying to call this function. Fixtures, you can use a return value, but you cannot call it as a function, right? So let me run this. Right, so there's an exception. You can say, you see here, right? It says, okay, fixture temporarily called directly, fixtures are not meant to be called directly, right? So that is the issue. You cannot call fixtures like in like this, right? Because what happened is when I try to run this test, there's a fixture called C instance, which is again calling temporary directory, and that is the reason it threw error. Okay, let's move on. You can also, basically, you can, instead of calling like a setup and tear down, you can also just call, you can use pytest.mark use fixtures, right? So basically it's telling, okay, for this test, just use this setup and tear down rather than putting setup and tear down here. I can just give it as pytest mark use fixture and setup and tear down, so automatically it will run the setup and tear down code. So if we look at this code, and okay, let's run this. All right, so you see setup and then tear down. So this is another way of calling fixture. You don't need to call it here. You can just use mark use fixtures and give the name of the fixture. So we have a fixture. We have defined a fixture here. I'm just using that here. All right. So this is another way of doing it. Um, all right. So now, basically, so that is what happens here. Um, okay. So okay. There's the other way of using fixture is, you can use auto use is equal to true, right? So basically, when you use auto use is equal to true, this fixture will be used in all the in basically all the function that runs here. So here, right? So because it's auto use, it will run in all the this thing. Okay, let's see this in action. See, so basically, setup, in test, tear down, setup, tear down, setup, tear down. So right, three. So basically, for in this test, it was, since it was used here, right? I'm not calling it here. It's auto use. It was used here. It was used here, and it was used here, right? So even if I comment this, it will still run thrice because it's in auto use. So if you see here, right, three times because it's auto use. All right, so you can use auto use for your fixtures, and then you can use this thing. Now, as I told you, this auto use is being used thrice because by default, every fixture is scoped to a function, like to a test function. But if I give scope is equal to session, then it'll just happen once. So the moment this fixture will just be called within session, and then it won't be like happening every time I use it. Okay, so it's just like scope to a session, and this whole run this running the test is one session. So basically now it will be just used, just called once, even though I still have auto use is equal to true. Okay, so if I run back, all right, so just once, right? So setup in test tear down, it is just being used once because it's auto use, though it's created, it's available, right? But it's just being called once. Okay, now coming to the last thing, you can have fixtures, you can have same fixture written twice, which will be shadowed, right? So basically, I'm defining another class called test my thing, and then I create a fixture called fix again. So now I have two fixtures. One is okay, and I can name the fixture. So let's say, oh, I forgot to tell you. Yeah. So basically, I can name my fixture. So let's say you have there is a function maybe, let's say this is a third party fixture that somebody has given to you, but the name is weird, you don't want to use this name. So you can do fixture name is equal to fix. So now instead of calling this name, I can use fix here, right? So now if I run this test, this fix will be returning a value of 5. So if you see this, if I run this only this test, right? So fix is equal to 5. So it used this fixture. Basically, it used fix here, which is given this name, and it's returning 5. So I get 5 here. Now the thing is, within the same module, I can have one fixture shadowing another. So I define a class test my thing, right? And then I define a fixture called fix, which is giving 10, right? There we had 5. Now it's 10 here, and I want to use this fixture here. So I call fix here, and then I run this. Okay. So basically now let's see what is the value. So I have two fixtures with the same name, fix there on top and fix here. Now if I run this, let's see what happens. Okay. Okay, cool. So we get 10, fix is equal to 10. That means this fixture value overshadowed the previous one. All right, folks. So we've done a lot of. I've gone through most of the Pytest fixtures that are used commonly. Let me know in comments what you think of it. Likes, share, subscribe with your friends. Thank you. See you again.